producer said, well, would somebody like to come up and say a piece of poetry or sing a song, just to calm things down? Nobody else volunteered, so I said.
The stage was tense. The audience sat in silence, still shaken from the rumble of the air raid sirens that had echoed across the city. London, 1939. Bombs were falling, families were hiding, and fear filled the air. In the middle of this atmosphere, a producer's voice broke through. Well, would somebody like to come up and say a piece of poetry or sing a song? Just to calm things down. The request hung in the air, but no one moved. No child raised their hand, no parent volunteered. The room was thick with unease until a small, determined girl suddenly stepped forward. She was only 8 years old, but her courage outshone the chaos. With her voice steady, she began to sing Mighty Like a Rose. The words floated through the underground shelter like a lullaby, cutting through fear and uncertainty. The producer and everyone present were mesmerized by her clarity and warmth. That moment of innocence and bravery didn't just soothe frightened families. It launched one of the most remarkable careers in music history. That little girl was Petula Clark. Long before the age of streaming or digital downloads, she became a household name, her songs echoing across radios and television sets around the world. Known as the girl with the golden voice, she defined an era. But who was she beyond the stage lights and the catchy melodies? How did she navigate fame, love, and resilience over 9 decades of life? Let's find out. Petula Clark wasn't just another singer of her generation. She was a symbol of endurance and elegance in a rapidly changing world. At a time when the entertainment industry was dominated by shifting trends, she carved out her own niche and managed to stay relevant across multiple decades and continents. Her signature hit, Downtown, became a global anthem in the 1960s, capturing the spirit of hope, freedom, and excitement of urban life. But Petula's story didn't begin or end with that song. She was already a beloved figure in Britain long before. She conquered the American charts. Her journey started in wartime England, blossomed through films, television, and international music stages, and later crossed over into activism and bold cultural moments. Fans adored her charm, critics admired her versatility, and fellow musicians respected her courage to experiment. She was not just a singer. She was an actress, composer, television personality, and even a quiet pioneer in breaking social barriers. Now at 92, admirers often wonder, how is she doing today? Does she still sing occasionally? What kind of life has she built after decades of fame? The answers lie in the story of a girl who turned a wartime performance into a legendary career spanning more than 70 years. To understand who Petula Clark truly is, we have to start at the very beginning, with her childhood in England, her family's influence, and the unlikely series of events that made her a star long before she was even old enough to realize the weight of her fame. Petula Clark was born as Sally Olwen Clark on November 15, 1932, in Epsom, Surrey, England. Her parents, Doris and Leslie, were both nurses at Longgrove Hospital. She grew up in a modest yet supportive household that emphasized hard work and resilience. Her unusual first name, Petula, carried a whimsical story. Her father jokingly created it by merging the names of 2 of his former girlfriends, Pet and Ulla. What began as a playful invention soon became one of the most recognizable names in the world of music. Though born in England, Petula spent much of her childhood in Abercynon, near Merthyr Tydfil in Wales, where her maternal grandparents lived. Her grandfather was a coal miner, and the close-knit Welsh community exposed her to a mix of traditions, songs, and a sense of perseverance that would shape her later performances. Her first taste of performing came at the Collier's Arms in Abercynon in 1939, where she sang for locals at just 7 years old. But her childhood was also marked by the chaos of World War II. Living just outside London during the Blitz, she vividly remembered running with her sister to bomb shelters and watching fierce battles unfold in the skies above. It was in this setting of uncertainty that her talent first caught public attention. In 1940, when the BBC invited children to record messages for their fathers serving overseas, Petula found herself in London's Criterion Theatre, deep underground, where it was safe from air raids. When the sirens wailed during the recording, many children began to cry. To ease the tension, producers asked if anyone could perform something cheerful. Petula volunteered, singing "Mighty Like a Rose." Her sweet, confident voice calmed the frightened children and impressed the producers enough that they recorded her on the spot. That was the first step in what would become a lifelong career. She wasn't just a singer, though. Petula also had a gift for mimicry. She entertained family and friends by imitating stars like Vera Lynn, Carmen Miranda, and Sophie Tucker. Her father recognized her potential early on and actively encouraged her ambitions. In 1944, after seeing actress Flora Robson in Mary Stuart, Petula decided she wanted to act, dreaming of becoming the next Ingrid Bergman. By the mid-1940s, her performances extended to chapel choirs, small public events, and even orchestra appearances. At one event in Kingston upon Thames in 1945, she sang with an orchestra and was paid with a gold wristwatch and a tin of toffee. To her, it wasn't about the rewards, it was about the thrill of entertaining people. Petula's first real breakthrough came in October 1942 when she was only 9 years old. That day, she was attending a BBC radio broadcast with her father, planning to send a message to her uncle serving in the forces. But the broadcast was delayed due to an air raid. To keep the audience calm, the producer once again asked if anyone would like to perform. Without hesitation, Petula sang "Mighty Like a Rose." The reaction was overwhelming. The audience cheered, and the BBC asked her to sing the piece again for the live broadcast. From that point on, her life would never be the same. She was invited back to perform on multiple BBC programs, quickly becoming a familiar face and voice. During wartime, over the course of the war, she appeared in around 500 programs designed to boost the morale of British troops and their families. Her warm personality and angelic voice earned her the nickname Britain's Shirley Temple, and later, the force's sweetheart. Soldiers stuck her photographs inside their tanks for luck, and she even performed for dignitaries such as Winston Churchill, King George VI, and Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. Her popularity grew so rapidly that she soon began touring alongside another young performer who would also become legendary, Julie Andrews. Petula wasn't just a radio star. In 1944, her life took a cinematic turn when she performed at the Royal Albert Hall. There, she caught the attention of film director Maurice Elvey, who cast her as a young orphan in the war drama Medal for the General. That opened the door to several other films, including Strawberry Roan, I Know Where I'm Going, London Town, and Here Come the Huggets. At a very young age, Petula had already transformed from a frightened girl singing in bomb shelters to a professional entertainer working alongside some of Britain's most important artists. But while she excelled in child roles, Petula longed for more. She wanted to be seen as a serious actress and performer, not just a child star. That ambition pushed her into new territories, radio, television, and eventually the recording industry that would change her life forever. By the late 1940s, Petula Clark was already a household name in Britain. She had transitioned from radio to film, building a reputation as a versatile young performer. But she wasn't content with just acting. She wanted to explore every medium available. In 1946, she made her first appearance on the BBC variety show Cabaret Cartoons. The performance was such a success that she was quickly offered her own show. By 1950, she was hosting Pet's Parlor, a lighthearted program that further showcased her charm and adaptability. At the same time, her personal life was shaping her career. she met Joe "Mr. Piano" Henderson, a pianist and songwriter who became both a collaborator and her romantic partner for nearly a decade. Henderson introduced her to record producer Alan A. Freeman, and together with Petula's father, they founded Polygon Records in 1949. This small label became Petula's launching pad as a recording artist. Her very first single, "Put Your Shoes on Lucy," was released under Polygon, and though it wasn't a smash hit, it marked the beginning of her journey as a professional singer. She also recorded duets with Benny Lee and began experimenting with a wide range of musical styles. Her early songs gave audiences a glimpse of what would later make her a superstar: warmth, versatility, and an uncanny ability to connect emotionally with her listeners. But Petula wasn't just singing, she was still acting. She continued appearing in films throughout the late 1940s and early 1950s, sharing the screen with talents like Alec Guinness. She was also featured in Radio Fun, a popular comic magazine that highlighted her as radio's merry mimic. Despite this success, Petula still felt she was being cast in roles that pigeonholed her as a child star. She wanted more control over her artistry and was determined to break into serious recording and international markets. The 1950s would give her exactly that chance. The 1950s were a turning point for Petula Clark. She was no longer just the girl who had brightened Britain's spirits during the war. She was now carving out her identity as a recording artist. Her early singles began gaining traction. In 1954, she released "The Little Shoemaker," a charming tune that quickly rose to the top of the charts. The song not only became a UK hit, but also reached #1 in Australia, proving her international appeal. By 1955, she followed up with songs like "Mallorca" and "Suddenly There's a Valley," and in 1956, she delighted fans with "With All My Heart." Petula was beginning to understand the kind of music that suited her best: catchy, melodic, and emotionally uplifting. Her father's investment in Polygon Records had paid off, but in 1955 the label merged into Pi Records, giving her access to a much larger platform. She remained loyal to Pi for nearly 2 decades, releasing hit after hit. She wasn't just focusing on her own career, though. With encouragement, Joe Henderson, her partner, launched his own music career and managed to score several hits between 1955 and 1960. Petula had become not only a performer but also a supporter of fellow musicians. Still, she was restless. Success in Britain was gratifying, but she knew the world was bigger than the UK. Europe, particularly France, was calling. When she was invited to perform at the prestigious Paris Olympia in 1957, she nervously accepted, battling a cold, but determined to give her best. The audience adored her. That night marked the beginning of her second career, this time as a European star. And as fate would have it, the decision to cross the channel would also change her personal life forever. After her triumphant debut at the Paris Olympia, Petula's future in Europe was secured. The very next day, she visited Vogue Records and met a young publicist named Claude Wolfe. The connection was instant. She was drawn to his energy and professionalism, and when she learned she'd be working with him if she signed to Vogue, she didn't hesitate. That signing was pivotal. Claude not only became her manager, but also her lifelong partner. Together, they built both a marriage and a career that spanned decades. Throughout the early 1960s, Petula became one of Europe's most beloved entertainers. She recorded in French, Italian, Spanish, and German, expanding her reach across the continent. Her French-language hits in particular turned her into a household name in France. In Britain, she was still topping the charts with songs like Sailor, which hit #1 in 1961, and Romeo, which sold over 1 million copies and earned her a gold disc. But it was her work in France that showcased her versatility. She recorded songs such as Ya Ya Twist, the only twist hit by a woman to make it big, and Chariot, later adapted into the international hit I Will Follow Him. She collaborated with major European artists, including Sasha Distel, who remained a lifelong friend and even performed songs by the iconic Serge Gainsbourg. One of the greatest honors came when Jacques Brel personally gave her a song to perform. Few artists ever received such a gift from the legendary Belgian songwriter. Petula wasn't confined to singing. She composed music for French films such as A Couteau Tiré, 1963, and La Bande à Babel, 1966, proving she was just as capable behind the scenes as she was in front of the microphone. By the mid-1960s, she was balancing dual careers, one in Britain and one in France. She had seamlessly crossed linguistic and cultural barriers, something few British singers had ever accomplished. But while her European fame was thriving, her British career was slowing down. She needed something bigger, something international, to re-establish her in the English-speaking world. That moment came with a song called Downtown. By 1964, Petula Clark's presence in Britain was fading slightly. She was still recording, but the music scene was shifting rapidly. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones were dominating, and her traditional pop style risked being overshadowed. Enter Tony Hatch, a young composer and arranger who visited her in Paris with a handful of songs he hoped she'd consider. None of them seemed right. Then, almost as an afterthought, he played a few chords of a tune he had started writing in New York. The melody was infectious, filled with energy and optimism. Petula immediately recognized its potential. "If you write lyrics as good as that melody," she told him, "I'll record it." That song was Downtown. Released in late 1964, it became a phenomenon. It topped charts in the UK, Germany, France, Japan, Australia, and beyond. But the most surprising success came from the United States. Warner Brothers Records executive Joe Smith heard the song while in London and quickly secured the American rights. Within weeks, Downtown was blasting from radios across the U.S. In January 1965, it hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, selling over 3 million copies in America alone. Petula had become an overnight sensation in the States, achieving what many British singers could only dream of, breaking into the American market. The song earned her a Grammy Award for Best Rock and Roll Recording, making her the first British woman to win in that category. More importantly, it redefined her career. She was no longer just a European or British star. She was an international superstar. The success of Downtown unleashed a wave of hits that dominated the airwaves throughout the 1960s. Songs like I Know a Place, My Love, A Sign of the Times, Don't Sleep in the Subway, and This Is My Song cemented her status as one of the decade's most consistent hitmakers. My Love gave her a second U.S. #1, while I Know a Place earned her another Grammy. In later years, Downtown would be inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, ensuring its place as a timeless classic. Her music wasn't the only reason for her popularity. Petula became a staple on American television, appearing on The Ed Sullivan Show, The Dean Martin Show, and countless other variety programs. She was charming, approachable, and effortlessly elegant, qualities that made her perfect for the TV age. But in 1968, she found herself at the center of a cultural controversy. NBC had invited her to host a television special with Harry Belafonte as a guest. During their duet of the anti-war song On the Path of Glory, Petula reached out and gently touched Belafonte's arm. To modern audiences, this might seem insignificant, but in 1968 America, the gesture was explosive. The show's sponsor, Chrysler, panicked, fearing backlash from Southern audiences over the sight of a white woman touching a black man on primetime television. They demanded the scene be reshot. Petula and her husband, Claude Wolfe, who was producing the show, refused. They destroyed all alternate takes, ensuring that the broadcast would air with the moment intact. Just days after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the show aired to massive ratings and critical acclaim. It was more than just a musical special. It was a bold statement against prejudice. Petula Clark had unintentionally made history. proving that she wasn't just an entertainer but a woman willing to stand her ground in the face of cultural tensions. Her career, however, was not without challenges. By the late 1960s, tastes were shifting again, with rock, psychedelic sounds, and protest music taking over. Yet Petula continued to adapt, proving her resilience in a constantly evolving industry. As the 1960s gave way to the 1970s, Petula shifted her focus. While she still recorded and performed, she began exploring acting more seriously, especially on stage. In 1969, she appeared in the film Goodbye, Mr. Chips opposite Peter O'Toole, earning praise for her role and showing that she could hold her own alongside established actors. She also appeared in musicals and stage productions across Europe and the United States. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Petula toured extensively, headlining concerts around the world. Her live performances were renowned for their warmth and energy, blending her classic hits with new material and standards. Audiences adored her ability to connect, whether she was singing to a packed arena or a more intimate theater crowd. She also continued to work on television, particularly in Europe, where her specials were highly rated. In France, she remained a beloved figure, frequently appearing on talk shows and music programs. What made her unique was her adaptability. She wasn't locked into one identity. She could be a pop singer in one country, a cabaret star in another, and a film actress somewhere else. This ability to reinvent herself is what kept her career alive, even as the music industry became increasingly dominated by younger, flashier acts. Now in her 90s, Petula Clark remains an icon of resilience and artistry. Though she no longer tours, on the same scale as before, she has never fully retired. Even in recent years, she has surprised audiences with performances, including appearances on television and stage. Her health, while naturally slowing her pace, has not diminished her charm or her voice. She continues to inspire both fans and fellow musicians with her dedication to music. Her legacy is immense. She is celebrated not only for her international hits but also for her courage in standing up for what she believed in. Whether during the 1968 NBC controversy or through her choices as an artist in multiple languages. Petula's career is proof that talent, when combined with determination and adaptability, can outlast any trend. From a frightened 8-year-old calming children in a wartime shelter to an international superstar who touched millions with her songs, her journey is one of extraordinary resilience. For fans who grew up with her music, songs like Downtown, Don't Sleep in the Subway, and This Is My Song are not just melodies, they are memories of entire eras. For younger generations discovering her work, they are timeless examples of artistry at its finest. Petula Clark's story is not just about fame and music, it's about courage, adaptability, and a voice that has echoed across nearly a century. Truly, she remains the girl with the golden voice. The 1980s brought a fresh chapter in Petula Clark's career. While many of her contemporaries faded into nostalgia acts, Petula reinvented herself once again. She embraced the stage, particularly the world of musical theater, where her charisma and vocal power were perfectly suited. In 1981, she starred in a London revival of The Sound of Music, playing Maria. Though comparisons with Julie Andrews were inevitable, audiences embraced Petula's unique warmth and sincerity in the role. Her ability to connect emotionally with songs made the production a success, proving that she was far more than a pop singer. Her stage work continued with notable roles in Blood Brothers in London's West End and later in Sunset Boulevard, where she played Norma Desmond in both London and touring productions. This role in particular showcased her dramatic depth, as she captured both the glamour and the tragedy of an aging film star. Meanwhile, she never fully left the recording studio. She continued releasing albums, some featuring contemporary sounds, others filled with standards. Though none reached the dizzying heights of her 1960s hits, they showed her enduring artistry and commitment to growth. By the 1990s, she had secured her place not only as a pop legend, but also as a respected stage actress. Younger audiences were introduced to her through revivals of downtown in commercials, films, and television shows. Petula had achieved something rare, relevance across multiple generations. Throughout her long career, Petula Clark's contributions to music and entertainment have been widely recognized. She has received countless honors, not just for her chart-topping hits, but for her ability to bring people together through music. Her Grammy wins in the 1960s cemented her as one of the premier recording artists of her time. But the recognition didn't stop there. In Britain, she was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, for her services to music. Later, in France, she was made a Chevalier of the Ordre des Arts et des Lettres, acknowledging her immense influence on French culture. She has also received Lifetime Achievement Awards from various organizations, including industry bodies and international music festivals. But perhaps her greatest honor is the enduring love of her fans. To this day, audiences around the world sing along when Downtown comes on the radio. Petula's name appears in the Grammy Hall of Fame, and her recordings continue to be reissued, keeping her legacy alive. For an artist who began as a child star, in the 1940s, this level of sustained recognition is almost unheard of. One of Petula Clark's most enduring contributions is her influence on future generations of performers. Artists ranging from Madonna to Kylie Minogue have acknowledged her as a trailblazer, a woman who proved that pop music could be international, glamorous, and enduring. Her willingness to record in multiple languages opened doors for European pop stars who followed. She showed that you didn't have to be confined to one market. You could be global. Today, artists like Shakira and Celine Dion follow the same path, but Petula was among the first to prove it possible. Her musical style, bright, melodic, and sophisticated, paved the way for countless female vocalists in the 1960s and beyond. Many of her hits, like Don't Sleep in the Subway or A Sign of the Times, have been covered by newer artists, keeping her music alive for modern audiences. Beyond music, her stance in the 1968 NBC controversy gave her a place in history as a quiet yet powerful figure in civil rights. She didn't shout slogans, she simply stood her ground, and in doing so, changed television forever. That courage remains an inspiration not just to musicians, but to anyone who values integrity. Of all her songs, Downtown remains the anthem that defines Petula Clark's career. More than half a century after its release, it continues to appear in films, commercials, and television shows. The song's upbeat message that there's always excitement and light waiting in the city resonates across generations. For Petula, the song is both a blessing and a legacy. While she sometimes joked about having to sing it endlessly, she also understood its significance. It was the song that turned her from a British and European star into a global icon. In 2019, she surprised audiences when she performed Downtown, live in her late 80s, proving that the magic was still there. The song is not just a piece of the 1960s, it is a timeless reminder of joy, hope, and the enduring power of music. For as long as Downtown is played, Petula Clark's voice will echo in hearts around the world.